What is going on, people of YouTube and TikTok? It's your boy here, Way of the Lock, or Yin from the Yin and Yang Show. So, today's video is brought to you by a mutual of mine on TikTok who sent me a link of... Ooh, someone's on the microphone. Who sent me a link to a website, the Nerdiest.com, where the showrunner, Leslye, was, in an interview. And... basically talking about, episode 7 and so far the characters and whatnot and the Acolyte and the direction. And I figured, we take this time to, break down some of the points. If this is something you want to see, please let me know in the comments below and I'll break it down more. But there was one to two things in particular I wanted to talk about. Now, the big question is, or the big thing that people don't understand is, what happened when with Endora freeing Kanaka and with all the witches and them just immediately dropping dead. So in the interview, the interviewer did ask, that question, why did they all die when Endora freed Kanaka? Headland, her response was, and this is me, I'm going to quote it word for word, so that way I don't take stuff out of context. As Headland said, this was a big question when we were working on the episode. To her, I would say to me, but, again, word for word. To me, it was important because it told two stories. One that Endora, desperate, her being completely and utterly the consummate Jedi in this episode. I did feel it was important that she also misjudged something. Yeah, misjudged something. If we were going to explore those themes, she couldn't just be the inflammable Jedi. Inflammable? I'll put a link in the description on YouTube. You guys can let me know. You guys should check it out if I mispronounced that word. She also had to have something else going on with her, and I think what she did is, in the moment in trying to sever the connection between Kanaka and the witches, she dealt with a power that she did not understand and was unfamiliar with, which we'll get to that later on in the video. The interviewer then asked, did she kill them? Headland replied, yes. She didn't know what was going to happen to them. So it wasn't intentional, said the interviewer. Headland said no, she did not know. All she was thinking was, I have to save him. Again, it starts to become a selfish one. I must save this colleague of mine. I have to do this. If I don't do this, then something terrible could happen to him. We've seen what they're capable of. I've seen them do this to my Padawan. They're now doing it to an incredible, powerful Jedi Master. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to make this decision. So, there was more to it. Hang on. But she doesn't know what the consequences of that decision will be. The same way that Soul doesn't know what his action will mean for Osha's future. Torben doesn't really put together because he's so young that the consequences of his actions are going to lead to all of this falling apart. And Dora had to also make that mistake in order to continue exploring that idea. So she didn't exactly know what she was getting into when she entered Kanaka's mind. All she knew is she had to free her colleague, her teammate, from, the clutches of these witches that got into, his head. And she had to do it, whatever it takes. Because, this is a Wookiee. She can't hold him down for long. And she did what she had to do. But, as Leslye stated in the interview, that this power that the witches were using, when Endora entered his mind, she did not recognize it. Because in the interview... Alright, so earlier on in the interview, the interviewer asked, in terms of their specific powers, how are the Acolyte witches different from the Night Sisters? And Headland replies, the Night Sister utilizes magic exclusively. With my witches, it's a bit of a hybrid. They're definitely dabbling in the Force and calling the Force by a different name. They're trying, which, again, it isn't common. We've seen it in Clone Wars and Rebels. People, believing in the Force but calling it something else. They're trying to cultivate the sensitivity to it without having to be trained by the Jedi. Is that even possible? But I also think that in the Ascension ceremony, you see how they utilize not just whatever the virgins may be physically on the planet, but the eclipse. These powerful movements of heavenly bodies and whatever's under the earth, that type of thing. What is meant to be expressed, there is that what is meant to be expressed, there is that they are drawing their power from nature, magic, and the force. So we never sort of go, they're using magic the way that. Oh, wait, okay, I fucked up that sentence. So we never sort of go, they're using magic the way that Night Sisters are. They're using the force, even though they're not Jedi's. So it's like I stated when I first started doing. I think it was when I did my review for episode 3 that these witches, the way they see the force is it's more of like a mixture of magic and the force, which is very interesting. Because it was in my review for episode 3. I talked about how the witches viewed the force differently, and we've seen it before. Like I said, we've seen it before in other medias of Star Wars, and that's very interesting. However, there's more to that question about the how they differ from the Night Sisters. She goes on to continue saying, to me, it felt more interesting to show a group of people, a group of witches, having abilities that the Jedi could not pinpoint. That they, Jedis, weren't going, oh, well, that's magic. Oh, well, that's the Force. That's one of the reasons they get so thrown off by the what they're seeing is so unpredictable, and it's so difficult for them to categorize and then report back to the council. The Jedi are trying to get as much information as they can, but each time they interact with the witches, they're getting different impressions of what the Coven is doing. So they can't pinpoint what these witches really are. They don't know if they're actually witches with magic, or if the witches that just believe in the Force and can harness the Force. Because every interaction they had is somewhat different, and they don't know what's going on. Now, I do gotta apologize if I'm going back and forth, because I'm going up and down, because there's different points I want to talk about in here. I'm trying to find this one part in particular, so just bear with me. It's just how I do it. I'm just bouncing back and forth between topics off of the article. But yeah, if you guys want to check out the article for yourself, I'll put a link in the description below on YouTube. I don't know if I could do it on TikTok, so if you're watching this on TikTok, you can follow me on YouTube. Same name as my TikTok, Way of the Lock. Alright, now here's something. With the interviewer asked, going into this episode, the show definitely suggested that the Jedi might have done something truly terrible on Brendok. But I think this episode shows that all their actions were either generally noble. Oh god, that's my eyes. Generally noble, that's better. Totally defensible, or at least understandable mistakes. What was the thematic purpose of raising the possibility of hidden Jedi crimes if you were then going to reveal that they were flawed rather than evil? Headland replies with, I'm so glad it read that way to you. It's a show about the bad guys in every sense of that word, and because of my previous work before coming into Star Wars world, was almost always concerned with some sort of immorality or amorality. It was always about characters running through a spectrum of those things, as opposed to having good character and bad character, a good girl and a bad girl, a nice guy and a womanizer, that these characters could be all of these things at once. So it was important to me. I'm glad that you got that impression from watching the episode, that the Jedis are not performing evil acts. They're not being willfully oppressive. They're not manipulating or tricking anybody. So if the show, with all the other characters, is exploring the spectrum of morality, the Stranger being a great example, it felt to me that the Jedi also had to have that particular treatment. The Jedi could not be a part of the thematic element of the show. Basically saying, this show deals with morality, and it's not so cut and dry. There's not a good guy, there's not a bad guy. The Jedi, they had the good intentions, but there was stuff that went down that turned shit sideways, to where when they discovered the Force-sensitive children, they wanted to test them, and just like the Jedi do, they asked permission to test them. And then when one of them passes, they they plan on going to see if they can get the child to come with them to the temple, not to kidnap, but to go, talk about it. They want to, get information. And we see in episode 7 that there was a bunch of stuff that happened, and it was like a domino effect. So when they find out that there was something near that base that was the virgins that the witches used to help create the twins, because again, we don't know how the twins were born. Even in this interview, Headland stated that the twins are not the virgins. It was just the witches used the virgins to create the twins. And when Torben hears that, he wants to... Now, mind you, again, Torben is a Padawan. He's not like a highly trained Jedi Master or a highly trained Jedi Knight. He's a Padawan. He's still young. He's reckless. He's impatient. He's been on this planet for weeks now, if not years. We don't... I think it was like weeks or something. And to him, all they're doing is they're just collecting plants. They're collecting samples. And he wants to just, he wants to go back home. Like, he's like, I could probably do something better than just looking at plants and doing research. And when he gets the chance, and when he finally finds what they're looking for, he's like, oh shoot, we can finally go home. And he rushes. Because again, if he was a Jedi Master, if he was more trained and disciplined, he wouldn't have done that. But being a young Padawan, that's typically, in their nature to, jump the gun. So he rushes there because he wants to confront the twins. And what is it? Soul goes to intervene, and it turns into them, trying to get information about, how the kids were made. Now, the one mother who's a Zathbrak, if I'm pronouncing that right, she doesn't want any of her kids to leave. She doesn't want either of the kids to leave. And she has a weapon ready. So she thinks the Jedi are coming to kidnap their kids. Which all they really want is Osha. Osha's the one that passed. And the domino effect on the witch's end is she tells May, she doesn't want her sister to leave, then make her stay. And then from there, it's just more dominoes fall into place. You see Torben, he's got the lightsaber ready. The Sabrath, I can't remember her name, but the Sabrath mother, she has a weapon at the ready. And May comes in yelling about the fire, and seeing the two people with the weapons drawn, and seeing May there, I'm just calling her the mother because I can't remember how to pronounce her name. I'd like to apologize now that I know the one mother's name, which is Corel. Corel is the Zarbrath. So I'll say Corel, and then I'll call the main, the person with the tattoo on her head. That will be the mother. So you got the mother, and then you got Corel. But yeah, so we see the two warriors ready to fight, and then the mother sees May comes running out, and she's got her mother instincts kicking in, because as she tells the rest of the coven in the meeting, she chooses to be a mother over the leader. And right then and there, she chooses to protect May. Now, as she starts turning into this, smoky kind of smoke, which they do explain about the smoke thing, but as she starts to, dematerialize, that's the word, dematerialize into this smoke kind of thing, you notice in the show that happens to May too. Now, Soul, seeing this, doesn't know what's going on, and all he sees next to him is this demonic face dematerializing, out of thin air. And his first reaction is, oh shoot, let me take out my weapon in defense, because he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know if she's attacking him or doing something to hurt the kid. He's acting on instinct. And it's when he ignites his lightsaber that he then realizes, he fucked up. He made a mistake. He fucked around and he found out. Now, on the topic of that's how you say her name, Anna. Okay, I'm not gonna try and pronounce that because I might butcher that name. I'm gonna call her the mother. So the interviewer asked, when May asked for help, Anna Anna Suwan. I'm gonna say the again. I'm saying the mother. When May asks for help, Mother not only starts dematerializing her own body, she makes May turn into a shadow as well. What can you tell us about what exactly is happening here and why? So Headland replies, so the mother's main concern is that violence will be used in this confrontation. Jody, in parentheses, Turner Smith, and I talked about that meaning two things. One, that Anastasia, if I said that right, that's my first time trying to pronounce it, must have come from some place that utilizes violence. It's something that she would have seen when she was a child, something that she would have endured in her coming of age. So the main concern is obviously the safety of her children, the physical safety for them, and the second concern is I do not want my children or my legacy to be affected by something violent. I want to remove them from whatever that is. The why, in parentheses, about the dematerialization is the first thing that Jodie and I talked about in seeding the character. What she is doing is what Jackie says in episode 4, that it's an honor to see anyone transform into the Force. I believe that Anastasia is transforming herself and May into the Force in a way that doesn't kill them. Now, this is very interesting, and I got a buddy of mine that knows about this. So a while back ago, like I can't remember when, it was like years ago. I think it was in college when I first started writing it. I had a fan fiction. I had a force power that one of my characters had, and this actually sounds like and this actually does sound like the force power in my story. So now I'm not saying that they stole from me. No, God forbid, no. I'm just saying it's really cool to see like something that I thought of, and it's like, oh my god, cool. Now it's like actually like it's canon. So now someone could be like, oh, that's not an actual thing. You made it up. I'd be like, yeah, it actually is in live action. But the power that I'm referring to is in my story. One of my characters can use what I call force phasing. It is a very difficult technique to learn. If you do not master it, or like if you are not a master at it, or something goes wrong, you are lost in the Force. Like you basically become one with the Force. You're gone. You're lost. And basically, when you force phase, your body becomes one with the Force. It's not like how the mother and the other witches, they turn like into this smoke and disappear. For the way I thought about force phase was, it's like in Lame Man's Turn, Danny Phantom from Nickelodeon, when he's in ghost form and he's going intangible. It's in a way like that, because like the body's intangible and is somewhat still there, and they can use it to phase through walls and stuff. But to actually see like a version of that is actually this version on that got introduced in the Acolyte's a lot better. But that's basically what she does. She's basically, I'm gonna call it force phasing, because that's when I first read it, that's how I see it. So yeah, when she was force phasing, that's what happens when she was dematerializing her body. She was basically force phasing. Now the other thing too is people always I've seen people talk about how the sisters, when they're younger, the dialogue was the sister going, "I'll kill you," and then it kind of tipsy turvy to she loves him. So the interviewer asked, with May talking about walking. Oh, hold on. Okay, so I was trying to find the question the interviewer asked. Hold on. Oh no. Give me 1 minute. So I can't find the question again, but there was there was a response somewhere in this interview. I was trying to scroll through. I'll probably find it while I'm looking through the interview again, talk about other talking points. But Headland replied. There was a reply that Headland made where she was talking about if. Oh, the interviewer asked if Osha kind of like misremembered the conversation between her and May when they were in the bedroom, or like just the dialogue between the two sisters, and now the sister's like, "I'll kill you," and And she had a response was like, it's not uncommon for like siblings to say the wildest shit. Um, because like if we saw in the show, like she said it, but then like as she lit the notebook on fire, you see she kind of like there was kind of like a regret, and as she's trying to like wave the fire, to get the fire out, it kind of spreads too fast, and she drops it, drops the lantern as well, and with the oil that's in the lantern, the fire kind of spread to the electrical circuits and whatnot on the wall, and yeah. Now the really cool thing, as I'm going back up and I'm rereading the interview, is Headland took inspiration from the Witches of Dathomir because the interviewer asked Anastasia's ability to be in Torben's mind while physically existing in the real world was very remnant of Mother Talia's power, as was Anastasia's ability to change her corporal form into shadows. You've talked about your love and appreciation of the Night Sisters before. Were those powers directly inspired by Talza? And Headland, her first response is absolutely. And she goes on and explains in further detail. Now, another question they asked is, why does Sol feel a connection to Osha so immediately, and specifically, why does he feel like she's meant to be his Padawan? Headland replies with, I wanted to keep some mystery around it and wanted to definitely call back to Qui-Gon and Anakin, where, Qui-Gon had that sense that Anakin, there's this great potential in Anakin. Back to her quote. Qui-Gon almost immediately zeroes in on the potential that Anakin has. The specialness of Anakin, the exponentialism of Anakin, I think Sol feels the same way about Osha. Not that they're the same, it's just Sol feels greatness in Osha, much like how Qui-Gon sensed greatness in Anakin. Where the only difference is Qui-Gon, as he did the test on Anakin, it was more why Qui-Gon had that sense. He's the chosen. But yeah, it's basically because, he sensed potential in Osha. There's just something that he feels within his connection with the Force, her strength in the Force, and how he recognized that. And I always wondered, having seen The Phantom Menace and seeing Qui-Gon behave the way he did, I did wonder, is this how it happened? Or do you just get matched up with somebody? And a much more compelling, interesting storyline is, as a Jedi Knight moving into Master, you identify your apprentice in a deep spiritual connection, whether it's out in the world, at the temple, or as opposed to being paired up with someone. Now, off of that, she piggybacked, the interviewer piggybacked and said, I'm glad you brought up Qui-Gon because I wanted to ask about Anakin. I think the connections between the twins and Anakin's were obvious, even before this episode, but I want to focus on their differences, especially this idea that their own consciousness split into two bodies. Why would that make them stronger, aka the power of two, and not weaker if they're two halves of one whole? Headland responds with, I think it's both. The girls are guinea pigs, the patient zero for this sort of power. It didn't work perfectly, therefore the girls on their own can never be as powerful as Anakin. The full potential together has yet to be explored. They have been separated for too long. So she's basically saying the twins are strong. They're not as strong as Anakin, because again, Anakin's the chosen one. But they're strong. There's potential there. It's like when you're doing an experiment and it's the first round of it. Maybe not the first, but one of the first experiments of this particular use of power. So the twins are weaker than Anakin for sure. They are going to fall short of what will eventually become the chosen one. They will never achieve... Sorry about that, guys. Anywho. So the twins are weaker than Anakin for sure. They are going to fall short of what will eventually become the chosen one. They will never achieve what that is because in my mind, Azazel could only do so much. Because again, remember, Anakin, the Force itself, created Anakin. Whereas, Anastasia and Coel, they used the Force, they manipulated the Force to, create the twins. Hence why, she can only do so much. She's not as powerful enough to create one person. The twins split, Anastasia's power split, and therefore a lot of her philosophies is about the power of two. And therefore a lot of her philosophy is about the power of two, about the fact that they must stay together. They must stay together. The twins are stronger together if she keeps them together. And obviously there's an analogy to this of the isolation feeling, not just of the coven, but also of family. If I can keep you safe, if I can keep you safe, then you won't get hurt. You won't get hurt. I don't know why I did it twice. That's weird. She goes on to say this is why the Jedi blowing up this dynamic both in episode 3 and 7 is so important to see, because Anastasia starts to essentially go into this crisis as a parent. Of course, I know they need to stay together, but they also need to be their own person. So perhaps I need to let go of my own design and trust that this is what's meant to be, because what's the other option? That I force my children to be people they're not. Alright, so we're at the 25-minute mark, but with my intro, it's probably going to be a 30-minute. I don't want to make this video too long. So yeah, guys, if you want to check out the article for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on TikTok, if you want to get to the link to the article, go follow me on YouTube. Go check it out. It will be in the description down below. With that out of the way, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Go check out the article for yourself, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.